Hi, everybody, and welcome to Andrea Speaks Out. My name is Andrea, and today we're going to discuss sexual abuse and its impact on body image. I know many people who they don't have the healthiest sense of body image, and I think the media can play a large role in that. I think there's a lot of factors, but what I've found is that many sexual abuse survivors tend to have a much more difficult time with this. Maybe, I don't know, at like a more extreme level with distorted or painful body image than perhaps those who haven't experienced being sexually abused. I know that helpful experience being sexually abused. I know that for me, distorted body image is probably one of the most long-lasting effects that I experience as a result of my own abuse. So I just thought it might be helpful to explore this topic today. And so I have asked a very special guest to join me in this discussion. So today I have Julie Anderson joining us. And Julie is so many things. Julie's been a supermodel throughout the years. She was the face of Estee Lauder. She's been featured on the cover of Vogue and countless other magazines and runways. And then Julie began evolving beyond the modeling world, and she's expanded into writing and publishing. Julie's the creator and the publisher of The Feminine Collective, and she's become a huge mental health advocate, and she's also about to release an incredibly powerful book of poetry. Oh my goodness, I am lucky enough I got to have a little sneak peek, and it is so moving and powerful. So I'm thrilled to have her join me today. So please welcome Julie Anderson. Hi, Julie.
Hi.
How
Thank
are
you for
you?
such a fantastic intro. Wow.
Oh, I feel
Oh,
like I didn't even scratch the surface with you.
well, I think I grew about 2 inches. I
Good.
mean,
You did.
okay, yeah. I saw,
Your children, so that they know you're as cool as I think you are. I'd be happy to. A lot of
no.
people,
Oh, that would
I
be
think we
nice.
all
Yeah,
need that sometimes. So no, I'm
yeah,
I'm so
true.
glad that you're here.
Thank
Um,
you. Happy to be here too, as
really,
well.
really excited that you're up for joining this discussion. I don't think this is the easiest thing to talk about for a lot of
No,
people. You know,
no, it isn't.
I don't know. I guess I want to start. I know that you have shared sort of publicly before that you have struggled with your own body image issues, and I think some people might be sort of surprised to hear that just because you're a model and they have this sense sometimes that you've got to be completely okay with your looks and everything. And so I love that you're vulnerable enough to share that. So can you share a little bit about the ways that you've struggled with your own body image at times?
Well, at times, I mean, it's an everyday process for me or an everyday experience for me. I am a perfect candidate for the title body dysmorphic.
Yeah.
When I look at myself, I see in my mind's eye somebody that's ugly, physically ugly.
Mm.
I don't see what other people see. I never do.
And you're
I
still
never
at
do.
that point right now.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's very, very difficult for me to have self-confidence in public, even though I've done, what I've been a model and TVC actress for 1,000 years. It takes a lot to get me out the door to have what's it called? Like just the oomph, you know what I mean? The pep
Hmm.
in the step, okay, yeah, here I am,
That vitality, that confidence, that
Yeah, yeah, it takes a lot. It really does. So I kind of have to morph into a different person to deal with those things or, to deal with that.
yeah.
But I remember being worried about my stomach when I was, 19, 20, 22, 23. And now I look at my stomach and I think, what was I 22, 23? And now I look at my stomach and I think, what was I worried about back then?
Oh,
So
I
it
know.
never stops, it never, ever stops.
Yeah, a lot of people have that feeling. There's even a meme around going around saying, "I wish I was as fat as I thought I was when I was skinny."
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
When you look back. But it's all
Yeah.
such a journey and a process. Do you remember a time when you noticed that your sense of body image may have been different from other people's? Did that ever happen?
I don't know. I mean, I think I finally figured it out that I had a warped sense of things maybe in my 30s,
Hmm.
but it still didn't matter. Do you know what I mean? It
Yeah.
still doesn't matter because that's the way my mind works.
And which part didn't matter? That it was different from somebody else's body image issue of themselves?
I mean, I've been around a lot of healthy people that have, owned their, healthy people that have, own their skin, own their bodies, own their presence, right?
Yeah.
And I see that intellectually. I can, imagine it, but it doesn't matter because I still have that issue.
Yes, I completely can relate to that.
Mm.
I understand. And it also doesn't seem to matter. Compliments don't help. Other people's confidence in us doesn't seem to help. We know how we should think and view our bodies, and it doesn't touch it. Doesn't
No,
fix the
no.
body image issues. It has to come from an internal place.
Yeah.
A
No, you're absolutely,
100%.
yeah.
And going back to what you said about body dysmorphic disorder, I have an understanding. Do you want to share a little bit more about what that means to you, at least, or the definition of body dysmorphia?
Well, I mean, as far as I know, the definition is I look at myself and I have a tendency to be quote unquote underweight. But when I look at myself, I see an extra 20, 30 pounds.
And you physically see it in the mirror.
Yeah, I
Right.
see it in the mirror. I feel it in my clothes, right? When I look at myself now that I'm aging and I see somebody who's like, almost 80 looking back at me in the mirror, but I don't look like that.
Hmm.
Do you see what I mean?
I
So
absolutely do. I'm
it's
just letting you talk, but
yeah, yeah.
I completely understand. Do you have? I'm going to ask you this question because, I mean, how many pictures do you have of yourself, or through the media and everything? There's pictures everywhere of you. What's your experience looking at those pictures versus your own self-concept? Because for me, I have this strange reaction where I just have this image of myself that I take up so much space, that I'm just so large, so much larger than I probably am. And yet when I look at a picture of myself, most of the time, although not lately, but most of the time I'm surprised, oh, I don't look as big as I think I am in the picture. I
Mm,
can
mm.
see picture for some reason. I know some people are opposite of that and they say, "Oh no, I didn't know I was that big." And in general, that's my experience, which is just odd. That it's, oh, that doesn't jive with what I see in the mirror. It looks very large. I am the same with you, but somehow with the picture, it doesn't seem there's a disconnect. So I was curious if you have a similar or an opposite experience than that.
Well, first of all, this might surprise you. I really have a hard time looking at pictures of myself. Like the other day, I had to do Polaroids for an agent, and they're, fine, perfectly fine. I look at myself and I think I'm like dog ugly,
Hmm.
right? Look at them. They're, fine, perfectly fine. I look at myself and I think I'm like dog ugly,
Hmm.
right? So only recently have I been able to go back through the archives and look at my editorials that I've done and look at them and go, wow, okay, that looked great. But all these years, I just saw somebody who did not belong, with the group.
Wow.
Somebody who didn't fit in. Somebody, maybe not larger, but just just yuck.
Yeah.
Just yuck.
That's
Yeah.
sad. It's so sad to
Yeah.
me that that's your experience, but that's what it is. And so many people have this a similar, no, self-hatred is a pretty strong word, but this rejection, this rejection of yourselves as being beautiful. And it is. It's hard for me to imagine that for you, knowing how beautiful you are inside and out. And yet I understand it completely. I get it.
Hmm.
Do you feel that
You know.
the modeling world, or did it come from somewhere else? Can you talk about that a little?
Well, it would be easy to say it was the modeling industry, right? It would be
Hmm.
easy to say that, which of course the modeling industry didn't, deter any feelings of less than. But I would say that, yeah, I mean, the sexual abuse, if you've experienced it, I think you have a, what's the word? You become a dissociate, you dissociate,
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
And so have grappled with disassociating from, the moment, the present myself all these years because of that abuse. And as far as my body is concerned, I've disassociated from that because of the shame,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
So, maybe that's why there is, you're right. Self-hatred is a strong word, but I know that word.
You
I
live
know
it.
that word.
You've lived it.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And why would I hate myself so much? Well, because of the abuse.
Yeah. I remember feeling many times that my body betrayed me. which just makes me sad to say, that it just betrayed me in, I don't even know how to word it, in responding the way it's physically wired to respond to the sexual abuse, which led to a lot of dissociating for me. So many times I felt myself sort of float up into the sky when the abuse was happening and shut off. And it's such a survival mechanism during the time, but once you're out of danger, it doesn't serve you anymore. And we're left with these, I call them leftovers, of not being connected to our bodies. And
Yeah.
and it's almost, a lot of times I think sexual abuse victims can feel objectified because their body was used by somebody else to gain domination.
Start. Oh yeah.
And
I'm
so as a result, you're in this defense mode, and that your body was sort of an enemy at the time. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, for me, the known sex abuse started happening, like what I knew started happening when I was 16. But I had like a small, like something inside of me saying, something else happened when I was much younger. And recently my father passed away, and during that time, I mean, for me, at least during that time, I spent 2 years going back and forth being a caregiver, and I literally just completely burnt out. But because of the passing and the trauma, I guess it brought up, it was discovered that, yes, that little seed that was saying something happened earlier, indeed happened. It indeed happened way by letting loose of, like I had no control over my bowels.
In the present?
No, well, after he passed and I ended up, that was kind of like a done deal, and I finally was able to come back home.
Yeah.
It started happening like that.
Wow.
Where I had no control over anything. And, what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? And that was a signal, a sign that my therapist said, well, that's what that means.
Wow.
So that's like, the infant or the young little girl finally speaking.
Yeah, your body remembers. And what a way to inform you. That must have been brutal and confusing and terrifying.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And it, went on for probably about a good month and a half until finally it just stopped. But, and then when you talk about being objectified, obviously my earlier experiences from 69, I didn't realize that my body language and the way that I dealt with people was from being abused when I was younger.
Yeah.
Right?
It's hard to gain awareness of that, of the connections. It takes time to see it.
I used to say, I was a touchy-feely person, hand on the knee, hand on the shoulder. And, people would make, suggestions or aggressive moves. And I was like, why are you doing that? Or my boyfriend would get mad, you're flirting. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. But again, that was from the sexual abuse. You're taught those things, right?
Yeah, right.
You have no boundaries. So my body, I don't know, my body has been used for so many different things. And I think I used it as well, at a certain point, a certain point of getting back. I don't know if that makes any sense.
And some control. And just the associations, that's what you knew. That's what you learned. Sexual abuse is so layered and complicated and has so many different effects that I think it takes a lifetime to really peel all the layers to see the impact. And there's a piece of sexual abuse that you get this feedback from. There's a connection, as unhealthy and sick as it is, it's still a connection with this other person. And if you're so little when you learn that, this is a way you connect with people, you're not a rational being when you're 3 years old. You don't have the development in your brain to understand what's going on, and so you can see why that continues and how you view your body. A lot of times we're mirrors to how other people have seen our bodies, and so that just takes so long to build a healthy awareness of it. So,
no, you're right.
I have a question about eating disorders in relation to it, because a lot of people, I think, in trying to cope with the body image pain that we go through, we try to control it through either eating disorders or, as part of it, massive exercising bouts. And I went through that for many years between just depriving myself of the nutrients I needed, trying to get to this unrealistic body weight, and exercising 3 times a day and weighing myself 7 times a day. And it just takes on a life of its own. It was so related and tied in to my body image. So I didn't know if you'd ever experienced anything with that.
Well, I didn't eat for years, and so that was a form of anorexia. I just didn't eat, and I could never become thin enough in my eyes. And then again, like I just mentioned, after my father's passing, by the time I came home, I was full-blown anorexic.
Wow.
So now I'm okay, but full-blown, like it should have been trotted off to a hospital immediately.
Yeah.
But I couldn't see it properly through, the right eyes.
And would you just be confused when people would give you feedback about it? Would people air their concerns to you?
Oh, yeah. Like I said, when I came back, immediately, you need to go here, you need to go there. Oh, no, I'm fine. Oh, no, I'm fine. And it wasn't until I went to my general doctor and weighed myself, and it was disclosed that basically I weighed less than I did when I was 15.
Wow.
So that was like, oh, okay, yeah. I mean, it's like you said, a hatred of self, hatred of body, hatred. The word hate, I think, fits for me.
Yeah, it sounds like it. And it's such a lonely place to be, and it's frustrating, and it's very difficult to explain to somebody who hasn't experienced this. And it's frustrating, and it's very difficult to explain to somebody who hasn't experienced this. For me, when I was in that mode, I'm much healthier now on the eating spectrum and the exercise spectrum. But when I was in that place, I would get a rush out of things, and it was so much about having control over my body. It was so much that, and like you said, just trying to get as thin as I could, because somehow it would, in my mind, magically wipe out the damage that had happened to me. Okay, then I'll be okay. Then I'll be happy. And there is another piece. I'm just thinking of this now. For me, if I had curves and I embraced, if the thought of embracing my body and being okay with it felt incredibly vulnerable to me. I felt like I would be at risk of being targeted, of being abused again. And I just didn't want any breasts, I didn't want any hips, I didn't want a butt, better than I think. Anytime where I would start to tap into feeling like, hey, I might look okay in this, it would set off so much anxiety for me. And that took a lot of work, and I am not there yet, but I'm so much better than I was, I think, in terms of being in my body. And trying, and my goal is to strive to have a healthier view of it. I want that. And I think I peek in and out of it at times.
Yeah.
But what does it mean to you if you can feel okay? If you could look at your body with nothing but love, what does that evoke for you? If that's an okay question. I don't know if that's too much to ask of you, but I'm just putting it out there if you're okay to look at that.
If I could look at it, look at my body with love.
Mm-hmm. How would that feel?
Oh, I think it would feel like, wow. I mean, it would be a release. Mm-hmm. Really, it really would. I mean, I wonder about that, actually. I wonder about that, actually. I wonder, like I said, I've known people that have had healthy body image and just healthy minds, period. And just to see the way that they conduct themselves and live, and, they're just free,
Yes, that's such a great word.
Yeah. So I imagine I would feel free. And the times that I have felt, let's say, less concerned about, what I eat and what I look like, and, just kind of flop around and be a person.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny because the feedback is never good because of the industry that I'm in.
Wow.
So I'm never ever allowed to just, eat a bunch of ice cream and enjoy myself,
Okay, it makes me angry. Sorry. It makes me angry for you that it's such a, I don't know if it's a catch-22 for you, that it's such a, I don't know if it's a catch-22. I don't know if that's the right phrase, But when I hear you talking, I can relate so much, and yet I wish nothing more than for you to have a world of your own where you can embrace it. But it would be a threat that if you were able to be in that place of complete acceptance and love, you equate it with kind of a danger of losing some of your livelihood.
Oh
That is
yeah.
going to be a rejection. Where do you go with that? That's complicated.
Oh, it's very complicated. I mean, what was it? Probably about, I'd say maybe 5 years ago, I was what would be considered normal body weight.
Hmm.
And I felt, I would say I felt pretty good at that time. And I remember I was booked on a job, a big client that I hadn't worked for in years. Finally they're back, being paid, an obscene amount of money for the day, and I was so grateful because, obviously everybody needs some money.
Yeah.
And fit the clothes, felt great. And then I could see the client and photographer and people kind of talking behind my back. And, I was sent home early and my agent was told that I was fat.
Oh my gosh.
Yep,
Oh
yep,
my gosh.
yep.
Yeah, I have
And
no
that was
words
like
right
a
now. Wow.
crushing blow, crushing blow. And I was normal weight,
Yeah.
normal body weight.
Well, and I think we all know the modeling standards, the media standards are not realistic for a huge majority of the population, but they keep
No,
perpetuating this image that we think we're supposed to achieve. And you just gave a glaring example of it. And
no,
how can you get well when that's your standard that you're living in?
yeah, it's always there, always there.
That
Oh,
is,
thank you. No, but I mean, it's not like the first or the last time it will happen to me, but I do know that, like, let's say when I was recently anorexic, I was told that I looked great.
hmm. Oh, I know. I've had that where my weight had gone to a dangerous level, and I got more positive feedback than I'd ever gotten in my life. And we're so messed up. We're so messed
And,
up that's what we value, and that's what we see and hear. And I'm right now struggling. I'm at the heaviest weight I've been in a really long time for a few different reasons. And I just keep going back and forth with, I want to try and be okay with that, and I could do so much better, and like my worth is tied into this ridiculous number. And it's so silly because it's so not who I am. It's just kind of this
no,
outside shell. When I just keep picturing when we're 95 years old and looking back, if we're lucky,
yeah,
what are we going to look back on? We're going to look back on the struggle, but we're going to remember experiences and time with others and when we laughed and who we loved and different adventures we had. And I just picture, I know this is so another topic, but like when we die and if we have this spirit and this soul soaring without the burden of a body.
yeah.
That's
What
what
would
I
it
try
be?
to picture to just get back into, how silly all this is. But it's so different for you because your world, you hear a lot of actresses and actors and models and people in that light that this is part of your livelihood is your appearance and how you're judged on it.
Yeah.
And I'm not
Oh no,
helping you
it's
very
so
much right now. Sorry. I'm like
no, no,
validating.
no.
Like, yeah, it sucks.
No, it totally does. But it's funny. I remember seeing somebody wrote something, or maybe it was a meme or whatever it was years back about when it's all said and done, you're really going to appreciate the times that you were worried about your thighs touching. You know.
Absolutely. So you said that so much better than I did. Thank you. You
No,
summed it
but
up in 2 seconds.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
true.
So, but like I told you earlier, logically I understand it.
Hmm.
Logically I see, but it's the inside, it's the inner child or the inner whatever it is that was so scarred and damaged
Hmm.
that I have to fight against, as well as obviously what I do for a living.
Right. Yeah, it's very complicated. I want to share something that when I started to see a shift for myself, and again, I am no way even close to where I want to be in terms of acceptance
Mm,
of my body image, but I have really in the last maybe 5 years experienced a big shift for myself, and I figured I'd share it. Where I did therapy for a million years. I talked through everything, and I exercised, and went to nutritionists and, really on a head level, try to work through
Yeah.
this stuff. And you're nailing it for me. Like, I understand what needs to happen. I understand what's going on. And I've still been stuck, that no one can
Yeah.
talk me out of how I feel. What started to make a shift for me was doing body work, where I received Reiki, which is really like an energy healing, and energy work, body work, and not massages, but body work and Reiki. And maybe I'll have an episode on that sometime, because for me, and I know a lot of survivors, where it's hard to explain the shift, but something got released, because we hold these memories on a cellular level. There's so much science about that and so much written about it, that I couldn't talk everything out of me, and my body would just react differently with stuff like that I couldn't rationalize away. That's why I think we get stuck sometimes, like we know, but there's a disconnect and fixing. And once I received this energy work, something's cleared up, and I didn't have as much difficulty with seeing myself, with being in my body, with sexual difficulties that I'd had in the past. Things started to really lift. And it just is interesting to me. I just want to share that with you and with other people, to maybe consider it, if some people haven't tried it out there, of learning a little bit about Reiki or energy work, because we all deserve to have that freedom that you talked about.
Oh, yeah.
And the more I focus on energy work within my body, the freer I start to become. And
Wow.
it's really, really powerful, because I didn't realize how resigned I had become to this way of life. I just said, well, this is just how I am. I was very gentle with myself about my harshness, if that makes any sense. I was very gentle with myself about my harshness, if that makes any sense. I'm like, well, of
Yeah.
course I'm going to feel like this. I was abused for many, many, many years. How could I not feel like this? And it's just, it's the only way you know how to live and see yourself. You just can't even see a different way of being. And I went one Reiki session, and I felt like I was able to see another way. And I started heading there. And so I just want to share that with other people, that this is certainly not the only modality that could help bring some relief, but it's one that's really worked for me. So I thought I would just sort of share it.
Well, no, it makes sense, doesn't it? It makes sense, the energy work. Yeah.
It does.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes that whole definition of insanity is trying the same thing over and over, expecting different results. And sometimes I
Yep.
don't think we look for a completely alternative approach that either scares us or sounds ridiculous, or you haven't thought of it yet or tried yet. Let's look to the people who have moved a little forward. What did they do? And when I first heard about Reiki, I'm like, okay, woohoo, crazy. What is that? No thanks. Honestly, when I first heard about that, I ran the other way. It sounded so out there and not for me. And I got to a point where I'm like, okay, it can't be a whole lot worse than how I feel now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I thought I would just share that.
No, good point. Good point. Huh. No, I'm very excited to even hear that this Reiki's working for you, because definitely I'll try that out.
Oh, good.
Why not?
Yeah, or at least check it out. Read about it a little bit and see what you think. And I'm happy to share more with you another time if you want. But it's so beautiful to have another resource and to get some hope.
Yeah. After
Well,
years of hopelessness,
yes.
It would be nice.
Well, so it's that time in the episode to share a joke. This is how I've been ending all my episodes, is with just a dumb little joke, because, in talking about healing, that has been one of the most helpful parts of my healing, has been laughter and humor. So I have a joke prepared. Do you have anything in your little way over there, any jokes or riddles, or no?
The only joke that I have is life is a joke. No, really, I'm just the sarcasm queen. So if we were sitting here right now, yeah, that's it. I've never been one for jokes.
That's okay. No
Tell me
judgment.
yours.
And I'm a goofball, so I have one. This is pretty bad, but you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. How do you scare a unique rabbit?
Oh, I don't know. How do you scare one?
Unique up on him.
Oh my God.
Sorry.
So obvious. I
It's
couldn't
so
see it. So
stupid. I
obvious.
know. But
No, but it's funny. But that's my thing with jokes is that they're so obvious. I just don't get it. It's so
no,
weird.
I know. I don't pretend to make it good or anything, but
That was
oh
funny. That
Lord.
was a good one. That
Well,
was a good
Julie,
one.
I can't thank you enough. This was so wonderful to talk with you about this topic.
Well, thank you for having me, and I appreciate your platform now that you're starting, and I think it's very important as well. You know, community. Community is what saves us, right?
Yes. Yes, 100%. And I just hope we can continue the dialogue of so many parts of this for the purpose of healing. We really can heal each other. We really can
Mm.
if we can just start being honest and talk about it. So I really appreciate your time. And if anybody out there has questions, comments, or suggestions about this episode, please feel free to reach me at andreaspeaksout.com. And I want you all to just try to love yourselves a little bit more today than you did yesterday. You deserve it, and be kind to each other. Okay?
Oh, thank you.
Thanks, Julie.
Thank,
Take care, everyone. See you next
thank you.
time.